actually remembered this time.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about meritocracy and forms of government. Basically, should we prioritize like certain qualities or like hard work and achievement, and why or why not? So we're gonna start out. Are we gonna do introductions today?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we should.
Okay. Intros. Wait, it's Victoria. Okay.
Oh, what happens?
I think she might have lost connection.
Hopefully she joins.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna have our discussion about meritocracy, and then we're gonna relate that to our discussion of forms of government. Then at the end, we're just gonna have announcements. So intros now, or because everyone here knows each other already.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we can wait till someone shows up.
Hello.
Okay, so these are some of the questions we're going to talk about. So I guess first, does anybody have like any initial thoughts about like what the word meritocracy even means?
When I was reading about it, my only impression was that even though it uses words like, or it ends in crassy, like democracy, whatever, it feels more like something you'd prescribe a culture rather than a government, like a way people think.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to some degree, like it is mostly like an aspect of culture, because where it mostly applies is like the workplace. That's where people like commonly think of meritocracy. Do you think it's like good and necessary, or just like bad?
That's a good question. I think I'll develop more concrete opinions like as we talk about examples or if we bring it up. But like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I don't think it's necessary, but I think it is good.
I see. I think we can apply it to government though, just like, or we can theoretically think about like how maybe it would be good to have a form of government that like somehow awards merit, or like we give the people with more merit more power. So does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for me, I think it'd be hard to align a government that way because the whole point of merit, when you try and define it, like it becomes a value judgment, like because people are good at different things. And so I don't necessarily think it's good to have that be a rule. It's kind of like, I forget the name of like the law or whatever, but when you make a measurement of success like a requirement and you try and make it fit the bill, it like stops being a good measurement of success. So like, I think we all agree that naturally, if you're good at something, you should be rewarded, or rewards just end up funneling your way. All right. But kind of like maybe everyone's noticed nowadays, like the ACT's not as good of like a predictor of your aptitude to get into college as it used to be. Like when people would take it once and that's it. And now it's like, since they know colleges look for the ACT, everyone tries to get a really, really good ACT, and that kind of just like devalues what it can do.
Yeah, that was a really good point.
I also think we like kind of have a meritocracy whenever we think about the executive branch. Like there's Secretary of State, Secretary of Labor. Like, there are so many departments, and theoretically, the person heading these departments should be like the person most well versed in what the department addresses. So I think that's an instance of meritocracy where like if we actually did give them to people who were qualified, then that would be
It would be
good.
the most beneficial.
Yeah.
I think meritocracy should like expand, or at least the way I view meritocracy is like more than just a way you run the government, but sort of like how like everyone in society is organized. Like if like you have a really good like doctor or surgeon, they should probably be in like a higher position than someone who's like really trash.
So in terms of like power,
Just like in, well, I don't know, in terms of power, just in terms of like,
salary,
yeah, I guess like how they're rewarded and like what they are able to do. Like you wouldn't want like some like new doctor who's like right out of med school to be like running like some like very big cancer research lab, right? You want to get that to someone experienced who's like good at cancer research, so he knows what to do.
hi Jesse,
Hey,
thanks for coming. We were just talking about like what is meritocracy and like how it might be good or bad for like government or like the workplace. So do you have any thoughts about it?
I absolutely have thoughts on them. For the most part, I think it sucks. What Teddy just said was important, and I did not think about it, but I don't know. I'm quite against the idea of, and I realize it's necessary in a capitalist society, but the idea of giving people worth based on, you know, how much they achieve, which I think like most everyone um, sees that problem, because then there's not really like much inherent human value, and then when people don't measure up, it's hard for them to like retain their self-worth.
If you see that as like an issue though, what's your solution to like encouraging advancement and like progress as a society?
I don't have one.
Okay.
Yeah, also wouldn't it like promote cheating or like kind of scamming the system to get on top?
Yeah.
I mean, an ideal meritocracy would like account for that and prevent cheating.
How?
Yeah.
I kind of feel
I-
like, sorry,
Oh.
if you have something to say, I'll let you say.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Okay. I was just going to say that I think meritocracy, like, it's not a principle you lay down, like you enforce a meritocracy. Like, it's kind of just an observation that when competition exists, the people who compete the best win, right? That's all it says. But then it says you should value the people who win more. So I think it kind of works best when you don't talk about it, because when you focus on winning as the end goal, kind of like it defeats the purpose of winning, like it devalues that. Because then people mentioned you'll cheat just to win, so then you'll have, I don't know, you'll feel valuable or something.
Yeah. So it's more about like the end result of being of like having merit rather than like actually wanting to have merit.
I feel like meritocracy would work better if the intentions behind it were to promote social good rather than to like more personal achievements. It's like, I don't know, being the best surgeon in the world because you want to cure certain like ailments
Yeah.
rather than in order to just be the best surgeon in the world making loads of money.
But
Yeah.
I feel like a meritocracy where like people with significant merit are rewarded well is like in a way leveraging like people's like inherent selfishness and putting that to use for social good. So I don't really see anything wrong with that.
In a way. I'm trying to think what I think.
I think I agree with what you said, Edward. But the problem becomes like, I'm just I'll run with an example and then maybe it'll become clear what I mean. So like I was a swimmer, and for sports, it's pretty clear that there's competition and whoever wants to compete the hardest will win. Like for example, there was a sophomore who made it pretty good one year, and then junior year on our team, he was fifth in the state in one like the 50 free because he wanted to. But the emphasis wasn't on doing good, even though obviously people who had the merit succeeded, just like a meritocracy wants to have happen. But like our priority was making it fun to be a team. And if our priority was instead for the coaches to push everyone to be the best by, I guess, giving more lane time or more better attention to the people who were better skilled, and kind of ignoring, like if the coaches ignored the people who I guess didn't want to work as hard, that would only create problems for the people who didn't want to work as hard because they just wanted to be there to have fun. Because like the people who will succeed just because the system is there and they want to succeed. But like having the coaches nagging at you to succeed, I feel like doesn't really help.
So if the goal of your team was to like have fun and make it an enjoyable time, then the person who got like fifth in the state didn't actually have merit on that team. Like it's important to define your goals before you decide like what has merit. So I think in that case, like someone who has merit to your team would be someone who like makes the team enjoyable to be on, like someone who's like funny and nice and is just like a pleasant person to be around, not necessarily whoever scores highest in swimming.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That is different than how I was understanding it. And I guess you're right.
But also, like, even if the goal of the team existing is to like have fun, like, I don't think that means that the scale for merit is just like whoever makes it most fun, because like those rankings exist for like a reason. Like it's still part of what defines merit, just because there is a competition in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you don't like care about the results of your competition, then like why does that shouldn't have merit to you? You know what I'm saying?
Right, but like as a team, I feel like even if you want to just have fun, like the members and like coaches or whatever will still assign like a good amount of merit to somebody who like does super well at state competitions and stuff. Like there's not like, maybe like we don't need to assign like one trait to be how we define merit.
Yeah, I think you can have like multiple goals, in which case like multiple people with different characteristics can have merit, which I think is like pretty essential for like a large society.
Okay. So, like speaking of meritocracy in a broad sense, especially like in the workplace, for example, it can promote efficiency and performance. You're like valuing people who actually like add a lot to your company, just how well they work. It's also like a promotion of equal opportunities. Theoretically, it shouldn't matter what the person's background is, or like as long as they are producing the results, they should be able to be promoted. And that kind of ties into potential for advancement, because you don't want to just like work super hard and not be valued. Yes. Does everyone kind of agree with these? Can you think of other advantages, or do you disagree with any of these?
I agree with all.
As expected. I think, yeah, I don't think you can really disagree with these advantages, except maybe like the equal opportunity one, because like maybe there's no way we can like legitimately have a like true meritocracy in the workplace even, or even in government. So like, yeah.
That kind of goes into like the disadvantages because that assumption of equality is like not really applicable in the real world. People don't have equal education. Education is like usually listed as the number one thing tied to meritocracy. You just have like the more you increase your knowledge, the greater will be like the potential that you'll actually like contribute something. It could also lead to elitism and apathy. You think, I worked so hard to get here. Why don't you just do the same? Like, I'm so much better than you.
Yeah,
There's
that's
also
a
like
really big one.
uncontrollable circumstances. It's not just like education. It could also be like a person has a specific disability or has like more family members they need to take care of after work or something. Or just, I don't know, it could just be something sudden or something they've lived with their whole life. You just can't really predict these things.
I agree with that. I think meritocracy works ideally when everyone has like an equal background and just like equal opportunities to do as well. And our world isn't like that. So there are a lot of problems that come with it. And I guess my problem isn't necessarily with meritocracy, but just with unequal access to things we need.
Yeah, I think like the uncontrollable circumstances part is like super important because like I don't know, like I was talking to Teddy about this earlier, but like you can't like, or you shouldn't in theory award or like punish people for like just their luck really. Like not everyone is like just born into a great circumstance where they're able to thrive and get that education and like just like progress through society in the same way that someone that just ends up being lucky can.
It's kind of like I like to think about it as, or I like to think of it as if you were to appoint someone in government or in your company based on whether they won the lottery last week or not. Like it's about as random as like as it gets because you can't really like studies increasingly show that even motivation or just like the ability to I don't know push yourself like willpower
Grit.
is a genetic willpower has a genetic component so that could be like incredibly unfair.
I think like the randomness sort of makes it so that like not everyone who like has the same merit necessarily has the same like power or reward, but it makes sure that like those who do have like high power and high reward are of like significant merit. Do people disagree with that?
Right. But don't you see like how it could be kind of unfair for people that have just as much merit to like not get rewarded for it? Just
Yeah.
I also think this ties into the apathy part of it because like a lot of the time you see people that like go from being super poor to like getting super rich and then they just like think that all poor people have the ability to do that when in reality like you can attribute a lot of their success to just like being lucky and I really think that is really harmful because then they just like have the mindset that uh you just like didn't work hard enough and like you don't deserve it if you didn't get it just because you got what you maybe deserved. I don't know. I think that kind of uh, attitude is like ingrained in us. Like I know like if I do well, I'm like, oh, I deserved it. But if I do poorly, I'm like, oh, it's not like completely my fault. And I think everyone kind of thinks like that to a certain extent. So yeah, it can be scary. Angie, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say how like I never thought of it like that, with like how whenever something good happens to you, you take full credit even though it could have just been luck. But whenever something bad happens to you, you're just like, actually it could have been different, like different circumstances. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely does have everything to do with it. And like people, yeah, I mean, it was exactly what you just said. I was just gonna rephrase it, but
We just want to feel good about ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
And
But it just like becomes harmful if you like use that to like think that somehow other people are not doing enough to give them
yeah.
success.
Because then there are the people who are like, if I can do it, then you can too. But it's like, no. Or like, even like this whole idea of like, I don't know how to, like, America's whole idea of like pull yourself up by the bootstraps or whatever. Like that's literally what it is that, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just really problematic, I guess.
Well, like that comes with like the American dream and like what you said, pulling yourself up. That comes from like a state of privilege to have the opportunities to do that. But a lot of people aren't lucky enough to have that. That's why it's kind of harmful to be like, well, you just didn't work hard enough.
So like, is merit in this case based off of like potential or like actual achievements?
actual achievements.
Actual achievements. Okay, so yeah, that I don't know how to phrase this, but like you can't really grasp your full potential unless you have the resources to like actually I don't know, do stuff or like grow. So a lot of people just simply like don't have the money for like, I don't know, in this case, like I'm just gonna use like tutoring or something for like the ACT, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, a lot of people, like I was talking to Megan about this because I was always like, oh my gosh, you're so smart, like you're better than all of us, you're so perfect. And she's like, dude, I just had people teach me all the time. And so like that's when I started to grasp like, oh yeah, it is just like about, it's more about like privilege in a sense. I don't know. Like it has to do with like both, but I don't know which one takes
I would sort of think that like the example you just gave of someone like studying really hard for the ACT is like almost a corruption of meritocracy and not necessarily like a disadvantage of it. Like in a true meritocracy, like both people would be judged like solely on their merit, not like how well someone like studies for it. Like
so in your case they wouldn't study for it, it would just be like a test that's presented.
Yeah.
I yeah, I see where you're coming from actually.
What's the difference between you guys' perspective is like meritocracy in theory versus meritocracy in practice when it has the potential to be corrupted by
Yeah.
Wait, I'm getting sorry. I never really understood what meritocracy was coming in, and I'm just getting more confused. So, meritocracy is not the same as a free market, right? Do we all agree?
Yeah, like a
They're
true
different. They're different. So, like,
exist. It's just like we're thinking about like the idea of whether or not it's like good to award people based on whatever we define as their merit.
okay, wait. So hold on. So what meritocracy is given a free market where everyone has an attribute of luck, obviously, like where you're born and all that. Meritocracy is saying because you made it to the top, you deserve and you have like the moral right to say every one of these disadvantage or not every one of these disadvantages, but like you have the right to say, I made it to the top, which means I am more valuable than you, right? Without admitting to luck or displaying empathy or all that. That's what meritocracy is saying. Because since like the swimming example, because you got first place, you get to look at everyone and say, haha, you're not as good as me, even if the other people might not have had as good of a swimming pool. Right? Meritocracy just says you're allowed to do that. Like,
or maybe not like
that's
allowed to do it, but like we can just say, oh, you have like more merit than these other people. I'm not sure how that like
Meritocracy is
Yeah.
not really talking about the person who reaches like the top and what they think. It's mostly like what society understands about like them reaching the top. You can look at the person who reached first place and say, oh, they like practiced harder than everyone else. Or if you're trying to like select someone to head like the swimmers association or whatever, you can look at whoever worked the hardest or whoever got first place. You can say, okay, you're going to be the president of this club or something. It's not so much like we don't expect them necessarily to be like snobby about it or to think they're better than other people, but it's
Yeah.
like to think that they deserve the achievement because they worked hard or harder than others. Does that make sense a bit?
a little bit. I'm still kind of confused because to me, like, if person got to A to B, regardless of like the benefits they had, like they're standing in position B now. It's like whatever that grants them, that's what it grants them. Like regardless of how fair or how you feel about it, right? That's just how it is.
Yeah, I guess we're trying to like ask the question of whether or not that is like it's a good system for us to actually award people more power or money or whatever based on how much like merit they have.
Okay, I'm getting it now.
So like even let's think about like pure meritocracy for a second though, like not considering like unequal education or like the different places that people start off in life. Do you think a meritocracy in like a system where we don't have to think about that would make sense? Like let's say everybody is on the same playing field, should the people that just like work harder or like get more successful be rewarded more?
Yeah,
Why?
because they got farther. To me, that's just like it's just like a cause and effect. Like regardless of how you feel about it, like they got there. So whatever being there gets them, it's what it gets them.
Right, but let's say we can just like make the system however we want it. Like we don't necessarily have to like award people more money or power because they got to a certain point, right?
Well, I think I agree with Edward where he said like that whole incentive is what leverages your selfishness. And I guess I'm still a little bit confused. Like if we're all equal, but then we go through some trial and other people can do different and more complex things than the other person, then they're obviously more valuable.
Valuable to whom and why are they more valuable?
Wait, what did you, sorry, I can't hear you.
Why are they more valuable and who are they valuable to?
Well, I guess it's a matter of perspective. Like if there's a bunch of people and they become pro basket weavers, like not a lot of people need basket weavers, but just by virtue of being able to do more complex things, I guess just generally that's more valuable.
I guess
And it's only valuable to the people that I guess this is going into like a free market system because value is only there for people who are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or else, like, if you had a bodybuilding, like people who just worked out for themselves and you were surveying them individually, like each of them might have the same body composition to begin with, but then one person might become super shredded and then the other people don't. But since no one's observing them like in a competition, just by being more shredded, like nothing really happens. I guess that's kind of like a bad analogy.
I guess the question is like, what about like being successful gives you more value in the first place? Like, sure, maybe somebody who is like good at a certain skill should get a job because they're just like good at it, but like why does that tie into like value and like I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like the slide says, like what is it about hard work that we think is so valuable? Like what is wrong with not working hard?
I guess going back to like your point about like why you value certain people, I wouldn't say like you like value people because they're successful. I would think like you value or you value people have value because they are successful. Like let's just take like I don't know, like an Uber driver, for example. You're like, you know, like one Uber driver who can get you someplace in like 10 minutes, but you know, another guy will like be really slow and he'll just like drive way slower than he needs to, and I'll get you there in like 15 minutes. Which one do you value more?
So like who is deciding value then? Like is it up
The
to
person who's like ordering the Uber.
I guess also to some degree, like with this question, I was also thinking of like, suppose person A and person B both like um are like running in a race or something. Person A is like exerting themselves as hard as possible to get to the finish line, and person B just has like really long legs, so just like walks over. They get to the finish line at the same time. I feel like society has a more positive attitude toward the guy who like worked super hard and like exerted so much effort to get to that point. Why is that?
I don't want to throw a wrench in your analogy, but like if I was watching that, I would value the guy who won the race easier because he has the potential, I guess, just watching him to become
wait,
faster.
maybe that also kind of proves the point though, because like what is like our society's like a pin like why do we have the viewpoint that like someone with like natural skill is just like way better than someone who like
That's in like some regards, but I'm also
yeah
thinking like, suppose you got like an 80 on an exam. You worked super hard to study for it, and then some person who just like slept through it got like a 90 or something. You're gonna be like annoyed, I would think, because you think your hard work should have been rewarded, even though theirs like produced more value in the end.
so maybe it's different whether or not you like frame it
About you
with
versus,
you versus like other people because like I know if I was the one exerting myself a lot and like I finished at the same time as someone who wasn't putting that much effort, I would feel like I deserve it more maybe because like of the effort I put into it, but like I don't know.
I also don't know if we should be like rewarding natural genius because in general that prevents people from like just trying new things and like putting effort into things that they might be good at and they don't know about it. And like I realize that maybe that doesn't have like a whole lot of value to like a capitalist society, but in general it has value to humans.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you elaborate on that more?
So we right now value natural genius pretty well, like people who are good at things on their first try. And because of that, and because in general we're rewarded for how well we perform on certain like metrics, um, a lot of people, especially our age, don't try things because like afraid of failure, because we've been taught like you're not rewarded as much if you don't score well on your first try, despite the fact that if you put in more effort and if you tried a couple times, you might eventually get to the place that you're trying to go.
Yeah. I think that's like a lot of people's attitudes towards like math. Like everyone's always like, oh, I'm just not a math person. But like, I don't know.
Also, I was just like curious about you guys' perspectives on the second question. So for my political science class, I was reading just like one guy who was talking about how idleness might just have to become like something we normalize in the future because so many jobs are going to eventually be replaced by like robots. Um, so if hard work is not going to determine like how far ahead you get, what are we supposed to value? What are we supposed to reward instead?
That's a good question.
I think it starts getting tricky like the second you try to actually define what should get rewarded, because I don't think there's any way you can control for like luck, even if you have a super equitable society. Like you can't control for genetics or like what how your parents are gonna be, or like honestly like a good portion of like what makes you you. So I don't know. It's very strange. I don't even know what like the implication of that would be. But
It's like so some people think we are obsessed with rewarding hard work because like throughout our history as human beings, we've had to work hard to like do better even before money. The harder you work at like harvesting your field, the more crops you're gonna have to feed yourself and your society. Um, but we might get to a certain point where you don't like you don't have to work hard to produce anything. And so at that point, like a lot of people think people will just like devote much of their time to pursuing hobbies, just like self-actualization. So would we even have to reward anything at that point, or would we like be rewarding something other than hard work? I don't know. I'm just curious about perspectives. It is kind of a hard question, but yeah.
I have a potential perspective maybe we could talk about. It's far from a full fleshed out idea, but it's like I'm in Econ 101 right now. And like the whole premise of econ is we live in a world where there are scarce resources because literally everything is scarce. And each scarce resource has an alternative use, right? You know, petroleum can be used for like a billion things. Just one example. So like blah, blah, blah. And maybe what we're not thinking about is time and the investment that people put in through hard work to be able to perform things faster than others. Because I guess for your example, like you would study really hard for a test and get an 80, and someone else would get a 90 without trying. Maybe the underlying thing is they expend less and get farther. Therefore, they're more valuable. Or like doctors who work really hard and then they emerge a lot more proficient in something than anyone else. So then they're able to do something for someone else better and in less time. Because like someone who wasn't competent, it would take them an immeasurable amount of time because they're not competent in that thing. And I guess that kind of maybe that works for hobbies too, where even though no one's valuing us, becoming a better painter means you're better at painting, like what you see. I don't know.
So you value efficiency, kind of, just how fast and how well you can do things.
I guess, yeah.
That's an
Do we have to value people? Sorry. Like, do we have to assign value to people? Is that necessary for us?
I feel like
Can
Jesse and I are on the same wavelength. It's kind of, I don't know, the idea of like putting people on some kind of spectrum of value just like doesn't really make sense to me. Like mostly because of like the luck aspect of things. It just seems so like unfair. Like, I don't know.
I agree that like I don't know, if you could like remove the luck aspect and just like reward everyone who like could have had the same impact, like that would be ideal. Um, but I still think that like assigning a value to people or like people's contributions is like essential for motivating people and just like creating new developments, or not even like creating new developments, just like having a society that runs well with motivated workers.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just like, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe like the whole problem is it's just impossible to account for like how many almosts there are. Like, because in a free market, like we're saying, or anything where there's competition, you're saying, well, what I'm understanding is some people succeed, but like you really feel like that's unfair because like people are out there who had all of the right capabilities if they were in that same position to succeed, but they didn't. And I feel like that's just a question of raising everyone to understand that that exists, right? Because at the end of the day, the same uh, environment where you compete for a goal, like luck and getting the bad luck of the draw for completing situation A, that'll always be there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to like theorize what kind of system would like be able to be like ideal in that sense. Like I know that like obviously we've just like kind of accepted that there's always some sort of luck that we can't control for, but like what would be the best system to like minimize that kind of effect?
I got it. I got it.
And also it's like it's almost like confusing to me to even award people based on like their success or their contributions. Like I don't know, I'm getting kind of fuzzy on like what we should like who deserves to be rich is like a weird question to me because like I don't know if like success is even like a good measure of who deserves money.
So if we had like a government facility where we shipped all the newborn babies so they were raised in identical environments, would that be the best society?
Well, no, because you can't control for genetics either, right?
But then that's the whole point of being different people.
Yeah, I
So
don't
then people are just different, or
I'm
else
not
we'd all just be the same like gray alien.
I'm not trying to say that there's like a one ideal person or whatever, but like I don't know. Like even when we like measure success, it doesn't even seem to be like that. It like more depends on like what field you're in, really. Like even like the most successful person in a certain field will not make as much as someone in a different field that isn't even that great at their job. So like it's almost like we're punishing that person for having a different skill. Like with super essential things like education and like social work and stuff. Like those fields are looked upon as like, oh, you don't make anything. You go into that. But like why? If you're a really wonderful teacher or like you're super good and efficient at your social work, like you deserve to make as much as anybody who does something else.
Well, I have a solution for that. The schooling system, at least. Like, why don't we have school vouchers or private schools? Because right now, like, the whole schooling system's a monopoly through government.
Mhm.
Like, I don't really feel like this is an ethical question, just more of a economical question, while observing like that humans are different. Because like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. What else?
Apologize. I'm just like, uh, I think I'm trying to like speak like outside of the system that we're like already in, if that makes sense. Like instead of just like accepting what we already know in our system, trying to like, yeah.
Going back to your example of like, why aren't people who are just like very good at any skill like all paid the same? I think like some skills can provide more benefit to society than others. So like, if you have like, yeah, a kindergartner teacher is like great, she can or he can like impact like 20 kids a year in like a really positive way. But then if you have someone who um I don't know, someone who like creates some like sweet tech website or something like that, they can impact like millions to billions of people with their invention. So they can do like more good just by helping more people.
It's kind
Okay.
of harder to measure though, because what if you're the kindergarten teacher who like changed the perspective of that child who later went on to create a tech company that changed like millions of lives? Do you
Yeah.
not deserve some of the credit?
Like I don't know. You're always speaking so utilitarian. So like I don't know. I don't think it's like fair to really calculate it just based on like the number of people you can impact, or like because there's no way to like quantify that in the first place, but like also it's really not fair to say that the person who created the tech company like deserves that much more than someone who like worked but I don't want to say worked hard anymore because it doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think like you said deserve like that much more, but then you never said like how much more they deserve.
Well, I don't know because these are not actual people that exist, but like I don't know. I don't even know if like even if it were possible for us to calculate like what someone's impact is, I don't know if that's even a good measure of like how rich they should be.
But then like how do you encourage people to make these like huge impacts if you don't reward that?
I don't know. I can come up with like the very optimistic perspective of like people will do things because they actually enjoy them.
But then do you only want to encourage things that people enjoy?
The good news is there are a lot of people, so they enjoy a lot of different things, and hopefully in a society where they're encouraged to um, try things like until they get it to their satisfaction instead of like to someone else's bar. Then again, with a very optimistic perspective, maybe we'd have a lot of people who are really good at doing like all these different things that we need.
Yeah, and I think you will get like some variation, but I sort of think like you won't get like the right variation. And the way to like encourage more people to focus their efforts on like things that are beneficial isn't to like hope that someone will find something beneficial, enjoyable. It's to actually like place rewards on doing this beneficial work.
But isn't that like to a certain extent like what capitalism encourages? Like we're always like told to like pursue the job or like major or career that like will that like you actually enjoy, and like that also is why a lot of people nowadays are saying like are like trying to remove themselves from that and like saying that like your job doesn't have to be something that gives you like that much joy, because like you can find happiness in like other places other than your job. Like your job shouldn't be like your number one source of whatever happiness is in your life.
That was like that was actually touched on in the same reading that I was talking about. That was talking about like automation actually. This concept of choose a career that like rewards you, that makes you like passionate about something, was not really always there. It's not just like a natural component of capitalism. It happened only in like after the 1950s, whenever there was so much affluence that people just like did not need to worry so much about having enough to eat. So like once you're secure, you start wanting to like find more fulfillment in every single aspect of your life, not just at home. They tried, okay, let's find this at work or something. And now it's like, okay, maybe at work, but we also need to find like fulfillment after work or outside of work. Like we as a society are always trying to maximize the number of hours we get to just do something that's fulfilling to ourselves, because that's a sign of growth in a way. So we were kind of thinking of like segueing from meritocracy to discussions about government. So there are like so many different types of government. These are just like 6 of them, but they don't even like begin to touch on the dozens there are. So as Americans, we are likely to say that like, oh no, that democracy is the best form of government. Why do we do that?
Because we've been taught that America's a democracy when it's not.
Yes.
You know, it's a democratic republic. If that's what you were assuming my next words were going to be.
Well, yeah. Okay. So let's just say we tend to think of America as democratic, republic or otherwise. What's so good about that?
My first thought would be that we've become what we've become in only 250 years. While the world's been around for like, or at least human society, like China is like 5,000 years old.
Valid, but we also kind of built off of other, like we didn't just start from scratch. We kind of used Britain for a lot of the things we needed until we like got to a good enough point to seek independence. But like other than that, I think of democracy or democratic systems as things that like award us with like a voice or the ability to choose people, like to choose people we think are fit for the job and to remove people we don't think are fit to rule us. I think that's how I would define democracy.
So does everyone think that this is like the best system though? Like if we did have like an ideal democracy, do you think that would be a good thing?
Like in some cases, oh sorry, you go.
No, you go. I just talked.
I think in some cases it's good, and in others it's like not good.
Such as?
So, like China, the way they dealt with the coronavirus was they just basically forced everyone to stay inside and like didn't let anyone out of their house for like two months or like a month or something like that. Like if you had someone do that in America, like they would never get reelected, and like anyone who supported them would never get reelected. But then they were like done with the whole crisis in like 2 months. But then obviously on the flip side of that, if you have someone in China who just like oppresses opposing views and just like murders political rivals, then like you can't do anything about that since it's not really a democracy.
And also, we're talking about like ideal democracy as like direct, right? Like direct democracy.
Not necessarily. Just like democracy that works to like majority is kind of dictate, or like your voice dictates what happens in government.
Yeah, so it's really problematic in my opinion because no one should let average citizens like decide political
Really?
or like make political decisions, dude. Because they don't know what they're talking about, or like most people don't know what they're talking about. Plus, if it's like majority rule, that just means it's like if it's 51%, it goes, which means that the other 49%, which is like almost half, is like not getting what they want.
You are arguing kind of like for a republic. You're arguing for like the electoral college, like the whole like republic part of democratic republic, which that could be your version of your ideal version of a democracy.
Yeah.
Minorities to have some.
So we do support the electoral college.
I don't like to. Well, only
think
because the electoral college is old people. I don't support it.
The electoral college doesn't have to be like the way that it is either. I think you can still support a representative democracy without
Yeah.
supporting the electoral college
Yeah, I was
as it is. Okay.
so like
But yeah,
would be making the big decisions in politics then, Andy.
State. Oh, sorry, you said Angie. My bad.
No, it's cool. I hate to say it, but it goes back to meritocracy, dude.
Who has merit in this case?
They're freaking educated. I don't know.
Okay, educated in what though?
In politics, I guess. Oh, but it is so like subjective. So I don't know.
Yeah, you
The
don't.
people who agree with me.
You don't just get rights once you like study.
I don't know,
Wait,
man.
so in your ideal society, only the educated could like rule? Doesn't that put the
That's
people
exactly what I meant. Is like it goes back to what.
because
in
people
a
who don't
sense,
have
it
the
goes-
privilege of getting like a college degree in political science and like
Oh
stuff
my
like
god.
that, they won't have a say in government. That's kind of messed up.
Yetta, you don't even have your camera on.
Yara got you there, Andy.
Step up.
Stop deflecting, Angie.
I'm gonna come to Angie's defense, but in a limited type of way. So
Go
I
off.
think that what meritocracy acknowledges is that every person like has their circle of competence. Like really, we develop ourselves to become good at like one thing. So that's why we tend to trust the EPA board guy to be or girl to be the person who's best at that, right? But I think where that falls apart is putting so much emphasis on national government versus state and local government. Because, like, what really, if you have to think about it, your state, like, for example, minimum wage, your state minimum wage is going to look a lot different than another state's minimum wage. So, like, why should that be a national discussion and not a statewide discussion? Or even more locally, like, why does your community have to be delegated to a community 5 miles across where their geography is different or something else? So why should that be a state issue? Because like just as we value people who have like competencies in specific things, I think we all understand where we live the best. That's why like before government became like as big as it did, and we had like the state governments were more emphasized, I felt like that was a more efficient system of democracy. Because like when I imagine democracy or like everyone's voice being heard, I imagine like in Athens 2,000 people sitting in an arena all like yelling the same thing, and like now magnify that to like the size of the United States. Like you see there's like a real scaling issue with that.
Does anybody disagree before we say things? Or agree?
I don't have like a I don't know if I know that we're talking about like pure democracy, but like if you think of how like COVID was handled, I know that some of you are in Michigan, but for those of you in Tennessee, you know that Bill Lee kind of, you know, goofed a lot. And we all like hurt really bad because of it. And the only thing that could have saved us would have been an executive order from the federal government. So I don't know. I see a benefit to having like someone supervising somewhere.
But like, why did it have to be the federal government? Like,
I don't know, because they have more power over the governor.
I see. Okay. No, never mind. I understand what you're saying now.
It's also, I just wanted to like raise a point for, like you were talking about like minimum wage for state governments and things like that. State governments might have had like a, I don't know, a better influence before like mobility was so easy. Like you can work, I don't know, there's a lot of people in Tennessee, for example, near where we live, who work in Mississippi or who work in Arkansas.
Or like people that work in, or people that live in Mississippi because it's cheaper, but then work in Memphis.
So it's like, it doesn't seem really fair. It's basically like driving everyone in that region to seek employment in the neighboring state that has higher wages, in a sense. So that could be an argument for a federal minimum wage.
But wouldn't that just be like if the ground rules were different and it was states prioritizing states, people would move to a different state rather than cross state lines for benefits. Just like I have a friend in Switzerland who goes to Germany for groceries because of the difference. Like, because they have free travel, you know, in the EU.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're saying. Like, you don't, if living in Mississippi is cheaper and you get more money in like Tennessee, you're gonna go work in Tennessee and then just like spend all your money in Mississippi, is what we're saying. So it's kind of like,
And I think that's okay.
that's okay, but like Tennessee might not be too happy about it. About
Well, then that puts pressure on them to do what's making the people leave and increase the minimum wage or whatever.
definitely, but it's also, you could argue that it just takes too much time for that to like actually take effect. It's a difficult question.
Yeah,
Like,
I see.
it should be like a topic of its own if this were not a less philosophical club. But do you guys think that democracy rewards merit?
Yeah.
I think it rewards
Yeah.
but not merit.
Yeah, it definitely awards popularity.
But don't you think that like there's some correlation?
Yeah, but correlation is not a really good way to look at things. We could also say like the same thing about like age or money. Those seem to correlate with like who has power in a democracy, right? So it's not really fair.
Wait, why is it not fair that someone who's older could have more merit?
I'm not saying that it doesn't mean I'm not saying old people don't have merit. I'm saying that like young people can also have merit, but we tend to, like, our democracy at least does not really award that.
It's also like we said, we think democracy rewards popularity, which some may argue is like the same as merit, but you can also argue that money is the same as merit since democracy rewards money, or democracy rewards seniority, and you can't really equate these things with merit. I guess that's what we're trying to say. I feel like in theory it does reward merit, but I don't know. Sometimes there are like, I don't know actually. I feel like it might be too big for small groups to punish someone they like find lacking in merit, because another group will just value whatever they're like, presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is very weird question to me because I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I think that there's like no system that can like ever come close to being ideal, like at all. Like everything is just like a variation of bad.
Yeah, it's just what can prolong our failure the most, I guess. That's kind of how we tend to think of things.
It's also super tricky because like I honestly don't think like the average citizen is like informed enough to make political decisions, right? But then on the other side of things, like if like normal people aren't making the decisions, and like what who does get the power? Like it doesn't seem to make sense however way you put it.
Yeah. Also, education is so subjective. Like, I don't think I don't think people who are like university educated or something should make decisions for like small rural farmers because they know their crops the best. They know what their like area needs.
Yeah.
It's not like just because you studied agriculture, you know what they need, you know?
Yeah. I think it's just so weird to think like because everybody in our country is like supposed to be like super like specialized, it makes it difficult to like choose people to actually run the government because in theory we should have like all-knowing people running the government, right? Which is why I love Plato's idea of having philosopher kings.
No.
What? Why not?
They just sit around all day philosophizing.
What is literally the perfect system? I don't know what you're talking about.
Is there another slide after this one? Oh yeah, okay. A lot of you guys already mentioned the coronavirus pandemic and how like sometimes a heavy-handed or like very involved government might actually be better at like dealing with disasters. Like it's also interesting if you think about wars. Every time the US entered a war, the powers of the federal government expanded a lot. And like stayed expanded for a really long time. After World War II, they stayed expanded like indefinitely. So it's like we can't really do we can't deal with like issues of international proportions if we're not relying on a big national government. At least I think so. Does anyone disagree? Also, I think like my problem with democracy, or at least like democracy as we see it in the United States, is that sometimes individualism seems a bit excessive because everyone's like out for themselves, but whenever you have to consider like your neighbors or like I don't know, I feel like people don't like think about each other enough.
I don't think that's democracy. I think that's just capitalism. Like, I don't know, because I think like my ideal state or whatever is like, I guess technically like anarchy, where it's just like everyone's governing themselves, but like for the collective whole, I guess, or like the good of their society.
But okay.
So like it's like no government, but you're governing yourself, right?
If anything, anarchy is more unfair.
Yeah, and also you can claim the coronavirus like response was kind of anarchic in the United States. You kind of deal with
No,
it.
but that's what I'm saying is that like ideally we wouldn't have needed like government interference to like quarantine or like lock down or like follow guidelines.
Dude, you can never expect people to be good people. That's so silly.
But why not?
What? You actually are wondering?
Ideally, yes. Ideally they should. I don't know, man.
I mean, ideally, yes, but like I think everyone can even see how they aren't a good person. So
Yeah.
Angie, after watching like how we all responded to COVID, I don't know how you could say that.
yeah.
hope. I just think people have been corrupted by outside forces.
No, we can talk about this in Human Nature Part
Yes.
2, but like corruption is not a part of it.
I don't know. I still have faith.
I don't know. I think we wouldn't have come up with these systems that enable corruption and advantages for some over others if we weren't already like interested in taking advantage of the loopholes in the systems. But I don't know.
That's valid, actually. Yeah, I see. I see.
I don't know. My point is just that like I don't think there is a ideal form of government. And if there is one, it would only work in a very, very, very small group of people.
Yeah.
But I still think philosopher kings are the best idea. If the philosopher kings are all knowing.
If they can arrive at conclusions instead of disagreeing with each other all the time, maybe.
What?
Oh.
That's literally Congress.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like there are so many writings I wanted to like link in the email for this topic, but we did not want the email to get marked as spam if it had too many links inside. If you guys
just
have
download them and attach them as PDFs.
Oh, I should have done that. If you guys have read like Alexis de Tocqueville and like his perspectives on like individualism in the United States, they're kind of interesting, especially because they're like 200 years ago. And so it feels like a lot has changed because we have seen the country come together in times of like really big crises, like wars and I don't know, natural disasters. But it's like interesting to consider why has our response to the coronavirus pandemic been so different. I think that's around like the last 10 minutes.
All right, I guess we can do announcements then. Does anybody have like any last
Concluding
thoughts about meritocracy and government? Okay. So next week we're gonna have a Netflix party where we'll watch like San Junipero. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it already, but like
It's so good.
still watch it again because
That's
I don't
good.
know, it'll be good. The following week we don't have a meeting, but the meeting after we'll be talking about the episode and about like uploading consciousness and whether that's like possible at all. I don't know. I'm like super, super excited for that discussion. So definitely come to that one.
Do you need Netflix to go to
Yeah,
the next meeting?
I can send you a link.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Wink,
Find
wink.
alternative sources.
Yes. So then how does it work? Like, will just someone be screen sharing and then we're just watching them?
So like
Or,
Netflix Party is just like an extension on your browser that makes sure everyone's
okay.
on the same time.
Okay.
As long as you start it as the same time we do, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
So basically, everybody just come to the meeting as normal, and then we'll send out the link. And for anybody who doesn't have Netflix, we can send out a different link.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's an extension because I do have Netflix. I was just wondering.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
On Google Chrome, it doesn't work on Firefox. And
I have Chrome. Yeah, I use that.
Nobody uses Firefox.
Wait, is it called Teleparty?
Yeah.
Firefox,
Okay.
y'all me off with Tia.
Yeah.
Hey, I use it for Roblox. It works well.
Missy, also shut up. And also, as we say every meeting, if you guys are U of M students, you should join our team for the campus walk for AFSP. And the link is just like on our website if you want to do that.
Sweet.
All right. Good meeting, everybody.
Thank you so much for showing up today.